Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode, another telehealth session with Trevor. I'm Solomon, and today we're going to be going over some of your questions from last week, talking about some of the things that you brought up as some issues, and I'll be talking personally too about some stuff that I'm doing. But yeah, Trevor, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Thanks
Yeah,
everybody for tuning in, and beautiful day here, and so thanks for staying with us.
yeah, we're curious what time is best for everybody because we're going live. We're hoping to catch some people on lunch, but you never know when people are going to be surfing the web. And hopefully, you guys can see this as a repurposed video as well, because hoping to just offer as much value. But let's dive right into it. So last week we had some questions from people. I'm going to pull them up here. Let's see here. How do we do this? There we go. So we had a question from Mario. He said he's got some lower back strain, and that's his biggest problem. So in general, info would be great on that. So just to kind of tackle that head on, Trevor, where do we even begin to start with low back strain?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And this is one of those things that at some point in our lives, most of us are going to have some lower back pain, whether it's an acute situation, one onset injury, or whether it's something we struggle with on a more chronic, reoccurring situation. So one of the things I generally look at if Mario were to come into the clinic and tell me he was having back pain, would be lifestyle factors that play into that. So whether it's your workspace, whether it's at home and different activities that you're engaging in, or whether it's more repetitive strain, maybe he's on the road a lot and in a car for extended periods of time. Maybe he's an outdoor or construction work type of field where he's going to be needing to do repetitive but also heavy types of lifting. So definitely lifestyle factors are the first thing we want to look into. And then we'd also want to look into other health factors. Obesity, it plays into it. The more increased weight you carry, and especially for men, we tend to carry weight more in the belly. That brings you forward in your posture. And we've kind of talked about that and other things, how that rounded, slouched forward posture can lead to increased strain on the joints. Age is another factor. So as we age, gravity tends to be cruel to us and kind of throws us into that forward posture. So those are all things I'd want to know about him if he came into the clinic. Or he did more of a telehealth session with us, kind of like we did last time. So getting those things out of the way, I want to know as far as his pain goes, is it pain when he's moving? Is it pain at night? Is it pain that stays in the back? He said lower back strain. Or is it pain that's going down the leg? If I can talk a little bit about your case, Solomon,
Yeah,
I know
definitely.
you had pain down the leg. So, to the average person, you might not think, well, this is a back issue.
Right.
You might think this is a buttock, hip, leg issue. And
Yeah,
I see that a lot.
My ankle was taped. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
And it was not my ankle.
Yes. So it's important to know not just, in Mario's situation, okay, it's a lower back strain, but is it affecting other parts of the body? Because then what I'm looking for is there a nerve that's being impinged upon? The biggest one is the sciatic nerve, so it's traveling from the lumbar spine, that lower spine, and it's going in through the buttock. There's a muscle called your piriformis, which is the one that you feel when you cross your leg and you got to pull your sock up or put your shoe on, and you're just sitting cross-legged. That's usually the one that you feel stretched. So it goes through that area, and then it goes down the hamstring. So if you're somebody who has tight hamstrings, you're also going to feel that there. And it's one of those situations where it tightens those muscles and those nerves up, but it can also give you tingling or numbness down the leg. So we want to know about those things. And then I want to know, as far as we talked a little bit about this last week, is in terms of strength, but going back to that core strength, is he somebody that does have an exercise regimen already? He is doing anything for it, and maybe that's caused the problem. Maybe he's doing a lot of heavy weights and rotational exercises that are kind of straining the low back, or maybe he's hasn't engaged in any activities, been more sedentary, has a sedentary job. A lot of us do, and especially over this time, we're sitting a lot more. I'll be the first to say that I've been sitting a lot more, and so I've felt a lot more stiffness. So just getting up and getting a general routine might be a good starting point. And we can link to some videos for kind of generalized back pain. I sent a couple there, but I think this would be good, maybe just based on what we said, related to both the sciatic issues, which may or may not be what Mario has, but also related to, just some general stretching and strengthening.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times we want a quick fix, right? And it's not so much of what you can do to fix it, it's what's causing the issue in the first place. And so if you can really target, like you said, it might be a lifestyle thing, it might be core, weak core strength. And these are things that I found out the hard way. And that's why I'm so grateful to be able to offer this to people, is that Trevor and I are really trying to kind of touch on people's blind spots, right? It's a lot of times it's these things that we don't even realize that we have deficiencies in that can really just catch us off guard, right? We got a question from Sarah here. She says, do you ever recommend yoga for back pain or other injuries? If so, what do you recommend? Restorative versus vinyasa? And do you think certain poses or types of yoga should be avoided due to injury? Good question, Sarah.
Yeah, great. And, yoga has a lot of different connotations. I think there are certain people that, have kind of an intimidation factor, with yoga, because they step into it, or they see the videos and they see a lot of the poses that they might not be able to do, or, they're worried about just, fitting in with that culture. But really, the basis of a lot of the yoga poses is fitness, is a stretching, slow movements, more focused on breathing, more focused on posture. So I think yoga has a great potential for healing and for addressing especially low back pain, because a lot of it's related to your core and your form with these different poses.
I know that one issue I was experiencing is I was doing a lot of yoga because I felt like I needed to stretch, and that's what was causing my problems. And I was doing a lot of forward flexion, which was putting pressure on my back. I had a disc issue, and so I was doing all these forward folds and child's pose, and wondering why I was getting worse and worse and worse. But I thought that I was doing the right thing, and so it's really important to really identify, like you said, where is the pain coming from, and it's not a one size. These questions are so great because we can look at them from all different sides, but there's no one size fits all, right?
Yes, that's very true. I think you can go to one of these yoga classes, and if you're a novice and you're in the background, you got to make sure you advocate for yourself. So that a lot of times the teachers will be able to cater to your issue if they know what's going on. And that being said, not all of them are trained, healthcare providers. So they might not know exactly, how to treat a disc issue, or something like that. But, in general, I think being able to be more aware of your body position is great. I think yoga does help practice that. A couple of the poses, I take a lot of my patients through are just the simple, warrior one poses, which are kind of lunged base, and then going into, like Solomon said, you want to make sure if you have a low back issue, whether it's a strain or whether it's disc nerve related, that you're not overly arching the back, in terms of, too much extension or overly rounding the back. And what we generally kind of lead people in is kind of going with what feels good. You kind of listen to your body on that. So if you tend to favor more extension, and that actually helps relieve some of your pain, then that's kind of what you need to go with is poses that use that more like, for us, I think we went into things more like your cobra pose, your your kind of extension based poses. But there are other folks who, if they have more of a compression type of issue, where that forward fold is actually a good thing, is actually relieving some pressure. So it kind of tends to say, okay, it's got to be pain-free, to keep it easy, and it's got to be something where you do feel some stretch, but it feels like you're actually getting more range as you go, and not, increasing symptoms. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great question, Sarah.
Yeah, good.
Again, last week we had another question that was from Arthur. And anybody this week that's just tuning in, you're welcome to ask any of your questions. Always love the feedback, and that's why we're here. So Arthur says, I have plantar fasciitis in the past, and since the gym is not open, I've been trying to run, but have had some foot pain again. Recommendations?
Yeah, so it sounds like for Arthur, this is more of a chronic thing, something he's had in the past, went away, maybe he wasn't running and going to the gym, doing maybe strength.
Plantar fasciitis for us?
Great question. So the plantar fascia is actually kind of that bottom layer, on the foot there, so you have, your bone, and overlaying that is connective tissue. And it actually provides a firm foundation that has kind of an arch that follows the bone, that helps to kind of support the foot, and it helps in kind of that springy, that feel that you need to be able to push off, that you need to be able to absorb shock. So that it's actually not muscle, it's a connective tissue. So it has some elasticness to it.
Kind of like from the ball of the foot to the heel, almost?
Well, yeah, and it even extends into the toes as well.
Okay.
So yeah, good question. So it does have that protective quality to it. The reason it usually gets inflamed is how our foot is impacting the ground. So, and a lot of times it can be due to an over-exaggerated heel strike. And also not just as the heel's hitting the ground, but also as the whole foot is getting to the ground, is that arch flattening out. Again, that arch is what's protecting and helping distribute the force of the foot. So think of it like riding in a car with shocks, riding or sitting in a seat with a cushion. You don't feel the bumps in the road because it helps distribute that force. That's what the arch of the foot's doing. So when that foot flattens out, then you're losing that. You're losing that shock, distribution, or that absorption. So it all goes onto that plantar fascia, and it's usually right at the heel. That back attachment that you were talking about, Solomon. So the way you can reduce that, so there's a couple of things you want to think about. You want to think about your shoe wear. I did send a link to that as well, but that's something that, if you don't have a good shoe wear to kind of reinforce that arch, that's huge. So a lot of running stores, a lot of stores that kind of specialize in those types of shoes, walking, hiking, running shoes, would be able to help fit you correctly, and even maybe go with you like a run on a treadmill or something like that, to actually look at the foot. And that's something I would recommend for Arthur if he hasn't done it. Actually, find a friend, or even videotape yourself running, And that's maybe could be a focus for a future podcast. Actually, you could have if he wants to send in a video, we can kind of look at it and analyze
That'd be awesome.
what I see going on. Yeah, actually, Arthur, if you're listening today, or if you see this later and you want to take a video of yourself and send it in, and we could do that with a couple folks, and then we could kind of compare the videos and see kind of who's doing what. Yeah, actually, and I know Sarah's watching still too. Sarah, if you maybe want to take a video of your running, we could kind of, and I'll put mine up there too. I'm not perfect either.
Well, so. It's amazing. It's really cool to be on here with you, Trevor, because I went on a run yesterday, and I've been having symptoms of exactly what you're describing of plantar fasciitis, but I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know what was going on. I've been doing a lot of standing on bare feet because I have a standing desk, but I'm at home all the time. I have a mat that I stand on, but it's like that it would make sense. I'm not using any arch support. I have pretty high arches, and I'll make a video of myself running too. I like the idea of those breakdowns. That would be cool.
Yeah, why don't we do that? That'd be kind of neat. We could all kind of, have videos of ourselves, and we'll,
what would be the best way for you to see those, to break them down? Would it be a side view, run across the screen? Running towards you? What would be best?
I think, side views are really good. And even if you don't have a video option, you could take several different snapshots, because really what we want to look at in terms of walking, running is each phase of that. So we want to first look at the heel hitting the ground, and if it's running, you might have more of a midfoot or a ball of the foot strike, which is fine. All are really acceptable. There's a lot made of where you're actually contacting the ground. But the biggest thing is your weight landing underneath you? Okay. So what I mean by that is if your foot's out front, too far out from your middle, if you will, from where your weight is, then you're actually impacting all your weight on your foot. Does that make sense? If your foot's out in front of you, it has to take all the blow. If your foot is underneath you, as your foot hits, that shock kind of sends up through the knee, the hip, the back, so the rest of your body can kind of absorb it.
That makes sense.
And actually, connective tissue is great. Connective tissue was made to absorb shock. I think we talked about that in other running pod, the one where I talked about my long run was that we did. You don't run with just your muscles and your bones. I know that sounds kind of a silly, kind of nebulous concept, but you actually run with these elastic fascia. The plantar fascia is a big one. You have the IT band that goes up from your hip to your knee, and what it does is it absorbs forces as you land, and as you kind of bend, you kind of compress in a little bit. As you expand, as you extend your body, those the energy that you put into it is being released. So you're kind of your tissues are kind of absorbing and then releasing that energy, and that's how you're able to run efficiently. So without expanding muscle work for however long you're running. So I back up to Mario, to Arthur's question, to say that how you're hitting the ground is very important. So get good shoe wear. The other part is having a strong enough muscles to support this fascia. So the arch of the foot, whether we have a higher arch, like Solomon, you said in your case, or whether we have a flatter foot, like in my case. So you need muscles on either side of that equation to support the arch. So doing things like last time we did those heel lifts, doing things like standing on one leg, and being barefoot is actually a good way to do that. Whether it's on a firm surface or whether it's on a more carpeted, or grass, which is going to be a little more challenging, because that kind of forces your muscles to react differently. So doing things, variable, different changes will actually help challenge your system. So that would be the other thing I would have Arthur do, is kind of some of the exercises. Go back to the ones we did last podcast if you guys are curious about those. And I think I did post a couple links for some exercises as well. But I think that would be an awesome thing. And then the other thing is just doing some massage. So because it's connective tissue, it's not muscle. Muscle responds great to stretching. We can get it into that elastic range and gain some actual changes. But that fascia, that especially thick plantar fascia, responds better to massage. So that's taking a golf ball under the foot. That's if it's really flared up, if it's painful, you take like a water bottle, throw it in the freezer, get it so it's kind of ice, and then you roll that over the foot, so you're getting the numbing and you're getting the massage.
Nice.
So that's some good early on things for Arthur there.
One idea, and I love that we can kind of brainstorm as we go through these with people, but sending in your videos if you guys have any questions around running, I'd love to break those down. But then also, Trevor, maybe what we can do is do a post at the beginning of the week where it's ask your questions, because it's so easy to go through these one by one, and then the video is then the resource that answers maybe 10 to 15 questions that people have. Just put it out there as an idea, but I think a post like that could go really well. And then anybody that's watching that, tag a friend that you think needs a little help or they're in pain. I know my mom might get some benefit from these videos as well. It's just cool to think that your expertise can help people all over, just by kind of talking about it and breaking it down. Because people like me having symptoms and I don't even know what to call them or what to look for. I don't have the ability to ask educated questions. It's just like, I have pain, so I don't know.
Right.
So
yeah, and that's we all start at different points. Like Arthur's a good one. He knew he had plantar fasciitis, has had it before, has had it his whole life. Maybe, and that doesn't mean you're out of the woods. You still run into, okay, how am I going to treat it this time? It might look differently than when you went to physical therapy last time, or maybe it went away on its own. So we all have different things that cause it, and it might not be the same as it caused it last time. He came up with it running this time, but it might have been from standing or being, on a hard surface all day. We see it a lot there too. If somebody's at work and doesn't have proper shoes. Good question.
Let's take my back injury as an example for people, and please leave your questions if you guys have any other ones. We'll be on for another 10 minutes or so, or longer, depending on how this all shakes down. But sure. I'm curious. So somebody like me that's kind of made a full recovery with the disc issue that I was experiencing. I had low back disc bulging that was causing the pain down the leg and all the way into my foot. And we, did the exercises, and I'm pretty much back to normal. Now, I think people in my position have several different options, right? It's like, okay, it's gone, I'm fine. Or is it, do I need to keep up this regimen so that this doesn't happen again? Or do I want to try to go beyond that, and to navigate the waters of not causing more problems by overdoing it, because it could have been from exercising in the first place, doing squats or heavy lifting. What would you say for somebody like in my position, good targets to shoot for? Just kind of breaking that down for people.
That's a great question. We get this a lot, actually. People come in and maybe they're healed from their injury, but like you said, they're not out of the woods. And a lot of these injuries, they come with, okay, now you have a tendency to be, predisposed to having this happen again. So how do I protect myself against future injury? So the best thing I can tell people is that you want to keep up with the regimen that helped you, but you also want to add usually a strengthening component on top of that. So in your case, like you said, we kind of got to the point that we figured out, or with testing, that it was a disc caused issue. And a lot of what we were doing, once we figured out that, your body actually responded well to doing more extension-based exercises, was finding positions that allowed you to do that, that allowed you to kind of extend the back, tighten through your core, stretch out what was tight, strengthen what was weak. And then what I would, keep adding, in kind of a gradual way is exercises that are going to strengthen that foundation. And we posted a link to it last week too, but that there's a training, it's called the Foundation Training, and it's from a gentleman, a chiropractor, and they do a lot of, can we find the tight muscles, the areas that are generally going to tighten up in response to a back injury, and can we loosen them up, but can we do it in a way where you're going to have to use your core muscles as well. So I would say, in short, to answer your question, I would say it's good to have that regimen. Let's say that you've gone to the therapist, or maybe somebody like Arthur, you've gone to the therapist, and your plantar fasciitis, in your case, your back injury is feeling better. What do? Well, you'd keep up with that regimen, but I always caution people that you want to add variety to it. So that may be going to Sarah's recommendation of doing something more dynamic, like a yoga class. That may be something like, starting into some strengthening, using some weights, and again, in a gradual, pain-free way. And for you, it was a little simpler because, like you said, you figured it out. Okay, it's all these forward bending activities that are flaring my injury up. So, for you, if you were to engage in something, I don't know, yard work outside where you're going to be forward lifting and bending a lot, then you're going to have to tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to need to kind of pay it forward onto my back. I'm going to have to keep doing some extension exercises heavily now because I know that that's my tendency.
Countering what it could
exactly
be predisposed to.
Yeah. I know I've had issues in the past with some sciatic as well, and it comes when I'm sitting for a long period of time. Especially if I'm sitting and I've noticed that my back is kind of slouched and rounded out. So for me, I know that if I'm sitting for that long, I need to put something in, like a towel rolled up in my low back to keep me from slouching. And it could be standing up and doing some of those just those extension type of poses. Actually, maybe Solomon, maybe you'd show just a couple. You know what I'm talking about? Just kind of a standing, back tilt.
Kind of breathing and
opening up. And if it's from seated, you can just put a towel kind of right in your middle back and just extend over it. You can use, hands behind the head, kind of clasped.
Yeah, anybody that wants to join us.
Yeah, feel free. That's an easy one you can do without breaking a sweat while we're doing that. Yeah, and going to each side. So that's the other thing. I think in your case it was the same, Solomon. I think there was one side that was a little bit more than the other. So, and this might go back to Mario's question too with the low back strain. So what I would do, and this is kind of an easy, McKenzie is the name of the kind of the official method, but it's saying how does your body work in terms of what feels the best for position. So if it's that extension position, if that starts to feel good, it might feel tight, but if it actually starts to feel like a stretch or like it's relieving pain, then that's probably what your body needs. So just doing a small incremental version of those stretches more often throughout the day is actually building endurance in those muscles. So a lot of people tend to think of these home exercises as something I'm going to do once, do quickly, and get it over with for the day so I don't have to think about it again. But if you're sitting all day, then doing one set of exercises isn't going to help you a whole lot. It'd be actually better off to do it, 5-6 times throughout the day, even if they're not long duration exercises. You know what I'm saying? So with that extension of the back, this might last 5 seconds and then it's done. But if I do it every hour, I'm training those muscles. The muscles have kind of a memory system attached to them, through the nerves and through our, our patterns that we learn. So doing something like a straight extension might feel good, and if it's something like in Solomon's case where it was more one-sided, you might add kind of a side bend like he was doing to kind of alleviate one of those sides. So if it's more the right side, okay, you might find I need to extend and I need to bend to the left to open up that right side. Mm-hmm. So kind of if you try that in kind of a more incremental stage, so slowly back, slowly to each side, kind of find what your body is actually craving in a way. And usually what I get when I have people try this is they say, you know what? I was kind of doing that already. I just didn't know it was an exercise. I just did it because it felt good. And then I'll say one last thing too is that usually if you have one side that you're leaning towards anyways, that's not helping you. If it would have helped you, you would have already healed yourself. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So if you're standing at your desk and you find all your weight's on your right hip and you have right hip pain, your body is probably kind of self-chosen a bad mechanism. So if you find, okay, I'm going to shift my weight back to the left a little bit, even if it's just to even, and then I'm going to extend my back, or I'm going to kind of bend, or just a subtle bit turn to the right or to the left, and I might find that eases the pain. It might even just be from a 5 out of 10 intensity to a 3 out of 10 intensity, in terms of a decrease. But you've done something. And the fact that if you're already standing on one side and that hasn't helped you, well, then it's not going to get you better on its own. Otherwise, it already would have. Right. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. We can post another video. I can find some that will kind of talk about that Mackenzie approach, kind of finding the position that your back likes and going into that.
Well, again, I want to open the floor to people, whether you're tuning in now or you tune in later. We'd love your feedback on how we can best serve you guys. We're just trying to offer as much value as we can and help people that are at home, and opening ourselves up, whether that's live or through some resources that we can post. I know Trevor's been really active in the chat, so if you leave your comments, he's got a wealth of resources and videos that he can send you down those paths, and we're still building out some resources as well. So, but if you have any ideas for us, ways that we could improve this, make it better, we're open to anything. We're just trying to make this accessible and easy. It can be intimidating approaching things, especially when you're in a vulnerable state. I know when I hurt my back, I didn't know where to go, who to ask questions for. There's so many different physical therapy places. Happened to find Trevor, and here we are. It's great to be able to just ask your specific questions and we can break them down. And anybody that wants to send in their runner video, you can just send that to, if you want to upload it privately, or you can send it, I'm trying to think of the best way for people to send them. Might be, probably just to our email, thephysicalspace44@gmail.com. And I can put that up. I think I can put some text up real quick. Do you have any closing thoughts, Trevor? Things you want to add?
Well, no. I appreciate all the great questions out there. I do want to reiterate, if this is something you're getting a lot out of, let us know. If there's a best time for you as far as the live videos go, the live events, and that's something we'll try to make more of a regular time. I appreciate people bouncing around because we've done some in the lunch hour, we've done some in the evening, we've done one in the morning. So if we had a regular time, if that would help people, I'm willing to kind of play around with that. But also, even if you have a question, you missed the event, post it afterwards, or I'd be willing to take videos too if people have other questions, if people want to send in a video question, or if you have a particular, exercise you're wondering about, whether it's running or whether it's anything else, if it's a certain activity, if it would help other people, and a lot of times these questions do. I'm sure they've gone out and helped more people than the people that ask it. So I really appreciate Sarah's question, and Arthur and Mario. And so thank you guys, and we'll be here. So
yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Sarah. We just got your comment. And so anybody that wants to send us a video, the link is right here. Send it in the email, and we'll add those into next week's video. And until next time, we'll just keep up the exercises. So,
all right.
All right, Trevor.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for tuning in.
All right.
See you guys later.
Bye.